Hello everyone, welcome to the Leggett Sportscast. Bit of a different setup this week. Myself, Judgy, Gary from Across the Park podcast, as Andy calls me, weirdly, still, as though I'm like some imposter. Joined by Musky this week, so different lineup this week for you. Andy is away in Thailand. We're going to come on to that later because there's some funky outfits he's been rocking while he's out there, but I'd love to embarrass him on his social media. You can all check that out if you want to look for yourself. But yeah, we'll be rounding up the normal sports this week, mainly focused on Liverpool and Everton. There's quite a bit, obviously, to pick up with the arrival of David Moyes, Liverpool's various competitions that they're in at the moment. And there's a bit of tennis to look at. Apart from that, Musky, I'm not sure we've got too much. A little bit of boxing maybe, and Misfits stuff as always. But yeah, let's get into it first. Where do you want to start, Musk?
Well, first of all, just want to shout out to the Feathers again.
Of course.
So, again, kindly allowing us to record in here before they open the doors on a Thursday, Friday. So tonight they have got Paul McKenna on, nice. And then tomorrow they've got Steph Hodge on as well. I haven't actually been down over weekend yet, so besides after the races when I wasn't drinking. So
Andy goes down enough for all of us, I think.
Yeah, he's getting his fill for everybody on the leg.
Yeah, so for everyone who hasn't checked it out before, it's on the corner of Harris Drive and Hawthorne Road. Again, nice little booze, but big enough again to if you come with the lads. But it's a really good setup. Loads of tellies if you come to watch the match. But as Muskie's just said, they've got plenty of entertainment on at the weekend, so it's a good spot. Particularly this weekend's going to be really windy, so get in here, nice and cozy. Listen to some good
yourself,
music.
Just bass.
That's it. 100%.
Right. So firstly, we will. I was going to say talk about the elephant out of the room, but because of his kicks. Elephant Kex himself. If anyone hasn't seen, have a little look on Andy's Instagram from I think about Tuesday or Wednesday. Have a little scroll. He's been spamming everybody with his Thailand stuff. Most notably his classic "I'm a tourist in Thailand" Kex.
Yeah. Oh my God, I can't explain. If you haven't, I mean, Muskie said to me it's some kind of traditional tourist attire. I've never noticed this attire in particular myself, and I've been to Thailand a few times and I've never rocked them. Whether Andy's just embracing like the hippie culture, or he's met a few travellers out there and wants to be one of their gang. But he's like Andy, the chameleon that he is blagging that he's like this free traveller, and he's, you know what I mean, he's got no money, he hasn't got a pot to piss in, which we all know isn't true.
Yeah. Floating around the temples, giving it the peace signs and the prayer signs and all that kind of stuff.
But he's definitely blending it. I guess he's blending it anyway. I haven't seen many other people on the pictures wearing them kecks, but he's clearly enjoying them. But yeah, get on it. It's definitely worth the value just looking at the pictures and seeing.
I can't imagine him cutting round the feathers wearing them though.
Oh yeah, well that's going to be the challenge for me. If you're so into it, Andy, and you're having this Thailand vibe, then
bring it on.
We want to see you wearing them in bootle. See how long that lasts.
Right, so in terms of sports, let's say, because obviously you weren't here yesterday, we tried to do a little bit of a...
Last week.
Sorry, yeah. A little bit of a homage to Moyes, but obviously we can't do it justice as two Reds. So obviously take us back to the episode when you basically called that's who you wanted.
Yeah.
A couple of hours later, that's who you actually got. How's it all been for you and then for the rest of the Everton fans as well?
Yeah, I mean, going back to, I guess, last week when it first happened and you know, Everton got rid of Dyche or he left by mutual consent, whatever the situation was. I mean, just to kind of touch on that, what we understand the situation was, which I'm fairly sure I mentioned it on the podcast, is that they met a couple of Mondays ago. It was the Monday night after the latest defeat. Can't remember what the defeat was. Anyway, they'd met on the Monday night. Dyche had apparently said to the owners, look, I can't take this team any further. The owners had agreed that's probably a fair reflection and okay, let's part ways. They left that meeting. The owners were then contacted by Dyche's agent to say he expected full compensation, as in pay into the end of his contract, which was in the summer. The owner said, well, no, you've effectively... you've resigned. So, and they were like, well, no, we feel it's more of a partner ways. So anyway, that was what the delay was. My understanding was they'd met on Monday night and he was going to be leaving. Obviously, it then came down to compensation, which they eventually worked out. Again, my understanding is we met halfway. Dyche wasn't happy about that, but he had to just accept it, which I think was fair. But anyway, he's left. They've obviously then had, a number of options. Graham Potter, I'm told they met with, but it just didn't really work out in terms of his thinking, where he wants to go with it, where Everton were looking to go with it, or what we needed in the short term and medium and long term. So that was quite a swift meeting, I understand. And he obviously then went to West Ham. After that, the Jose Mourinho rumours came out. Again, my understanding, there was never any conversation or any thought that Jose Mourinho, from the owner's perspective, was going to be the next manager.
That was kind of just based on Mourinho's kind of thing, saying, I'd like to come back to the Prem, but not for a team in Europe and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they were definitely putting a few factors together. Again, the fact that the owners had brought Jose Mourinho to Roma as their first manager there. He'd been, as he always is, relatively successful. He's unhappy, rocking the boat at the moment to Fenerbahce, and as you said, he'd come out recently and said that he'd like to go back to England. Anyway, that passed. And then you're left with the candidates like, as I say, David Moyes was then near the top. Lee Carsley was there. I understand he was under consideration, but there was just a concern around his experience. They did try to explore the idea of Carsley coming in with Moyes, which I'm glad they did, because that would have been something that most Evertonians would have welcomed. But I get the awkwardness of that situation. You've got Lee Carsley, who wants to be the manager in his own right. You've got Moyes, who still harbours ambitions of being a manager at this level. So that hasn't, obviously come off. And eventually, David Moyes is given the job. As you just pointed out, I thought it was the right choice. Given all of the circumstances, the fact that we're still in a precarious situation, we need a manager who's going to get a little bit more out of the players we've got, which Dyche hadn't done to that point. We need a manager who would understand the club, understand the fans, probably understand what the realistic job is for this season, and then would potentially just be able to take the team on a little bit more. Apart from getting relegated, we can't get any lower. So I do think Moyes has got a history both with Everton and with West Ham of taking a team from the lower ends of the Premier League into the top half and on the periphery of Europe, and obviously, as he's recently proved at West Ham, winning a European trophy. If he was to take us anywhere near to those levels in the next 2 years, that's a brilliant appointment and progress from where we are now. Just before we move past Sean Dyche, and I guess for the record from my point of view, and I would say most Evertonians, we're grateful for the job he's done. I think I've said this a few times. He's done the job we expected him to do and nothing more. But that doesn't mean to say we can't be grateful.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think if
that's
someone
what he's brought in.
If someone said to me, "This is what the outcome of the Sean Dyche appointment's going to be," I wouldn't have been bitter or disappointed about it. I'd be like, fair play. He took us through an unbelievably tough spell of the club's history and navigated us through that. He survived 2 relegation fights, points deductions, various other things. He deserved credit for what he's done. But this summer was his opportunity to show that he can kick on. And when I say kick on, and I've said this a few times, I'm not saying we expected to be in the top half Europe, beating every team. We expected to be beating some of the teams that have been promoted and that are down there at home. We expected to be away from the relegation area, not literally staring it in the face again. We expected to play slightly more, ambitious football, as in trying to score 2 or 3 goals at home against the teams near the bottom of the league and just trying to compete away from home. He's not done that. And therefore, he's proven, as I said, that he's the manager that we thought he was. He was the right manager for the job at the time. He's not the manager for the job now.
Yeah, spot on. And you just mentioned there about the summer not being the best summer for him. A couple of the players that were brought in, I'm not saying that he brought them in because he clearly didn't. They've had a bit of a go under Moyes already. What do you think about that? That's
it, and I think that's the perfect segue, really. I mean, David Moyes has come in, he's looked at the squads, he's looked at the players who've had a positive impact, and those players mainly belong in that defensive unit. And again, I think he was inheriting as strong a base as he could hope to have as a manager. The style that he plays, he obviously does play to try and be solid, but then, to try and, be a little bit more expansive than Dyche is. But again, he's looked at the players maybe in the attacking third, maybe the style, not necessarily the style of play, but the formation, the way in which we try and create chances. And he's identified, I think, first and foremost, the 2 players in particular, Iliman Ndiaye and Lindstrom, that have not been anywhere near let off the leash, or the handbrake hasn't been taken off for them. Iliman Ndiaye, that goal he scored the weekend was no surprise to the Evertonians. He's been doing that type of thing all season, but he's been doing it 30 yards deeper.
Yeah,
So
he's been doing it and passing it, or
well,
no one to support
We've
him.
Still got
whatever.
another 40 yards to go before the goal. So now Moyes just went, well, if you beat those players the way you have been on the halfway line, and we move you 30 yards up, you're beating them on the edge of the area and you're scoring more goals then, or at least you're in that, the area of the pitch you want you to be. Likewise with Jesper Lindstrom, he's playing 30 yards deeper, and he's maybe getting the ball, good touch out of his feet, driving at a player, then he's passing it inside. Now he's getting the ball, driving at a player, crossing the ball into the box, and I think his performance the weekend and the number of crosses he got into the box was more than any other Everton players got in this season. So impact from him. Dominic Calvert-Lewin got his goal, showed a brilliant bit of composure to do it. It's interesting, I think I've heard more comments from David Moyes about Dominic Calvert-Lewin than anyone else in the squad since he's come in. He said, look, clearly we need more from him. I know there's a player in there, but look, it's the ball's in his court. I'm going to try and, create a platform where he gets more chances, but ultimately he's got to take them chances. So, interesting bit of psychology, but look, he's got a goal. I don't think we could have asked more from the manager from an attacking sense than we got at the weekend. We created more chances. We created chances from different areas. The three players that are most likely to get us goals or to create goals have been pivotal to the win. A big confidence boost for them.
I think it was the speed at which you went from the back to front as well. It wasn't just like pass around the back, knocking it back to Pickford. Like we know over the last couple of years, Pickford's had more touches than most. Especially for Ndiaye's goal, you could see. I think it was from Tarkowski, it was like 3 passes and then it was into Ndiaye, and he obviously.
Well, the minute it got in, and you're spot on. Every time our centre backs got the ball, it was like, and again, I've taught this as a coach from academy age. You'd always look for the furthest pass and then work back from there. I'm not saying the furthest pass, just launching it up. Can I find Calvert-Lewin? No, I can't. Well, can I find the next player? And that was definitely a key aspect of the play. There was 2 or 3 times in the first half that Brandtwaite and Tarkowski got it and went right over the top of their defence into Calvert-Lewin. He's in on goal. Obviously, when that wasn't on, they bounced it into Ndiaye. He's played that little give and go he's played that give and go with Guy, and he's pretty much in on goal. Guy's the person who's been he's been integral to the Calvert-Lewin, but he hasn't been. There's so many times we've seen from Guy and Mangala, it's always right, it's left, it's back. Every time they got it was, can we try and penetrate? Can we try and penetrate with that pass? I mean, you're showing the stats there. We're not dominating possession here, and I don't think. That's not what Everton about. It's never been about that. When we were successful under Moyes previously, the only manager who tried to kind of cultivate us into a possession team was Roberto Martinez, and that didn't really work eventually. We've always been a team that's, look, it's high tempo, get the ball wide, get it into the box or get it into the striker, and that was what I think was so enjoyable about the performance of the weekend. Obviously, in typical Everton style, we've made it difficult towards the end. I think that flattered them, to be honest. We've probably put so much into that first 65, 70 minutes. We've took our foot off the gas, but we should have been, make no mistake about it, should have been 5 or 6-0 at that point. And that's still a bit of a concern. We haven't killed the team off as we should have done. But look, I'm not going to complain with a 3-goal lead against Tottenham and eventually beating Tottenham at home in the manner that we did.
Spot on. In terms of the we were talking about a little bit about new players coming in rotation and all that kind of stuff. We've also got O'Brien coming in at right back as a centre back, but it's just allowing the right backs or the full backs, I should say, to have a bit of a break as well and show that there's another option there as well. You
can't underestimate the importance of that tweak as well. So in his first spell, one of the first changes he made was putting Joseph Yobo into right back, who everyone knew as a centre back and probably our best centre back at the time in terms of his athleticism and stuff. But the two things that playing a centre-back has done for Moyes in the past is, one, it gives him a chance to see that centre-back in a less pressurised situation, i.e. he's not necessarily the last line of defence. He's got 2 experienced centre-backs alongside him who've done very well for us. Say experience, Brandtwaite is more experienced than he is, but a solid partnership. So for Yobo, when Moyes came in last time, it gave him another solid defender in there, but it was less risky having a Joseph Yobo or in this place a Jake O'Brien who doesn't. He's got a mistake in him. He's still a little bit rusty.
But at least he's making a mistake on the flank rather than through the
middle. So that's one advantage. The other one is obviously you've got extra height in there, which he brings in abundance, and physicality from set plays, both defending and attacking, which Moyes loves and Dyche probably loved as well, to be fair. But then the last one is you're allowing that more freedom for Jesper Lindstrom. He's not thinking, has Jake O'Brien overlapped me there? Where is he? He knows he's tucked in. He knows you've always got at least 3 defenders back there, and at times 4, because Mykolenko, most Evertonians will tell you, he's a defensive left back. He's probably a left-sided centre back, to be fair, if you're going to be honest. So you've got 4 defenders there really who are going to invariably stick back there, and then you've got the impact on the midfielders, Mangala and Guy. As I say, you've seen Guy involved in both 2 of the goals. You see Mangala very high up the pitch, and he's a player for me that is just not being given anywhere near a chance to express himself and to show what he's about, because he scored some decent goals from outside the area. He's got a good range of pass on him. He's a much better player, from an attacking sense than Guy is, but he's just been not given that opportunity. And equally, I think he's thinking, well, I'm not really sure here. I've got Ashley Young here who's maybe getting on a little bit. I've got Mykolenko back there. We've been a little bit exposed back there, which, I say exposed. The job for them too has been, you stick in here, you hold the position. And I guess that's the reason why we have kept more clean sheets under Dyche. But there's definitely been, an initiative from Moyes to go, we'll bring Jake O'Brien in there. I know we've got Mykolenko as defensive fullback. It means our wingers can play a lot higher and cheat like Ndiaye did at the weekends and Lindstrom was able to do. And our midfielders can even be a little bit more bold in terms of how high they are up the pitch. So again, a really clever tweak. And also an opportunity, as you pointed out at the start, to get one of our summer signings in there and to try and get something out of them. So, yeah, going back to your first point, 3 players there on top of Ndiaye and Lindstrom with O'Brien that we've bought in the summer. We've got little to nothing out of, apart from maybe Ndiaye, who are now starting to show that the recruitment wasn't necessarily the issue. It was the manager maybe not getting enough out of them. And
if you do end up getting a little bit of form out of Calvert-Lewin, do you see that changes his future with Everton, or
who knows? I mean,
do you reckon Moyes has got a chance to kind of convince him?
I think he's got a chance to convince him. I don't know if convince him's the right word, because I'm not sure most Evertonians or even the club want to keep him at this stage. He's had a good crack at it. I think there was a lot of mitigating circumstances around his injuries, which equally made him a bit of a liability a few seasons ago. He's overcome them. But he's had a really solid run in the team for the best part of 2, almost injury-free for 2 seasons now. Now, obviously, he's gonna point out, or his agents will point out, well, look, he wasn't getting the opportunities. The team weren't playing in the way he wants to play. If he goes and gets, 6, 7, 8 goals between now and the end of the season, I think there's no doubt we'll want to keep him, particularly if the manager feels that he fits in with the way he wants to play. And it'll be an interesting dynamic. I mean, I'd be disappointed to see him, not accept a contract offer and move on, because I think the club have given him a lot of support and a lot of backing through, again, an injury spell and a ridiculously barren spell. So it's one of them. I think if you were to say to me now, does he stay or does he go? I think he goes for a number of reasons. Probably his personal reasons, that he'll probably feel aggrieved that he's not got the best out of his, his better years or his prime years, and he's still got an opportunity to do that. And we'll feel that we need someone who's going to get us more goals. But yeah, it remains to be seen, I guess, now between the end of the season, how well he plays, how many goals he gets, and again, the appetite of David Moyes and the club to offer him what will probably end up having to be a pretty bumper deal if he starts to get goals.
And if we look ahead to the weekend, are we seeing the Brighton game?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because again, if you try and rely on what we know about David Moyes from the previous spell, a team like Brighton, who are flying. They're firing on all cylinders. They're beating teams by 3, 4, 5, including Man United at Old Trafford. The old David Moyes, and I think West Ham fans would probably tell you the David Moyes they seen at times would say, this is not for us, this game. Let's limit our damage. Let's maybe try and nick a point. We might get a 1-0 if we're tight enough, but this is not a game we're going to go toe-to-toe like we did against Tottenham and try and beat them. It's probably a game you'd have down as a point, hopefully, but let's not get smashed 3-4-0. And if I'm honest, I'm not completely against that. Again, there'll be Evertonians watching this going, that's a lack of ambition. We can go and beat them, blah, blah, blah. We beat them 5-1 a few seasons ago. You're
thinking about boxing, trying to box clever.
Yeah, I'm even thinking about the Bournemouth game in the Cup. I'm thinking about Bournemouth at home, and then I'm thinking about Leicester at home. If you give me a choice of winning 2 out of those 3 games, it wouldn't be Brighton and Bournemouth, certainly. It wouldn't be Brighton and Leicester. I would prefer Bournemouth and Leicester. So we can't be greedy. I think we've seen from that game at home that this team under Moyes will pick up more points at home, and I would imagine we'll pick more points away against the teams that we can go and beat. I think we're going to have to accept that we can't go full tilt every week. It's going to have to be horses for courses. I think this will be a game probably that he brings in maybe an Ashley Young for a Jesper Lindstrom to give us more solidity on the flanks. And Doucouré probably sits in alongside Mangala and Guy as opposed to supporting them with Calvert-Lewin, and we maybe just try and get something from a set player on the break, but we don't overexert ourselves, and we certainly don't want to pick up injuries by going full tilt and bringing those injuries into an FA Cup tie that I think Everton fans will be keen for us to try and win, and a game against Leicester which is an absolute must win. So in short, I would expect we'd get beat at the weekend, and I'd also expect that Moyes probably doesn't go overly, doesn't go all out for the win. And I would take, it sounds terrible, I'd take a 1-0 defeat and just move on without any, damage to morale. If we go there and try and play and we get beat 5-0 or 5-1, then we're taking 2 steps back then, which I don't think is healthy at this stage.
And Brighton are capable of doing that.
Oh, 100% they are, yeah, without doubt. Particularly if we play the way we did against Tottenham, we were leaving gaps, we were leaving opportunities. And just to briefly go back to the game, Son has a chance at 1-0 to us, which he should have scored, and it probably would have changed the face of the game. So I think we do go and try and play the way we did against Tottenham, we could easily get spanked. And that's not, that'll be a huge blow to David Moyes and the team. So I think he's going to approach it very differently in summary, and I wouldn't be devastated if we just lost by the odd goal or two, and I'd just be looking forward to the Bournemouth game and the Leicester game.
Sweet. Any more on Everton?
No, obviously it's the transfer window, isn't it? So an interesting time. We're being linked with all kinds, as you'd imagine, with a new manager and with owners who've got a bit to spend, and with, at the moment, touch wood, the PSR worries behind us. So yeah, there's no doubt, and Moyes reiterated after the Tottenham game, we need to bring in some quality and some numbers. Even
if that's like a little long move with someone who's
and you mentioned it in the notes, we are hamstrung a little bit because we can't make any more domestic loans because we've got Harrison and we've got Brozier. We've tried to send Brozier back to Chelsea, but Chelsea have said we'll take him back, but you have to pay all his wages. Personally, I just take the loss, pay the wages to allow us an opportunity to get another loan in, because as you pointed out, Chukwuemeka's available. They're happy to trade us in to loan him out, but we can't loan him because we've got 2 domestic loans. I think we explored the option of trying to send Harrison back, but I think that's an even more expensive one. So we'll probably have to stay. So I think that would be a move that I think from a financial point of view would probably be the best value we can get, even though it means swallowing what's probably a 1.5 million for Brozier's wages for the rest of the season. And then you've got things like Willian, who's available till the end of the season as a free agent. Would he just give you a bit of quality maybe in the last 15 minutes of games from set plays? Would he be a positive influence for some of the attacking players? Yeah, maybe. But again, I'd be shocked if we didn't bring 3 players in. I think on Across the Park this week we discussed it. I'd love to see an attacking left back come in as our biggest investment, because I think long term, medium term, that's where we need to invest. And then maybe another couple of players that we bring in on loan, like a Chukwuemeka and a winger of some sort, that we maybe just look at a short term one that's going to get us a few more goals, which I think we're going to need to secure us the points to leave us more comfortable in where we are now.
Yeah. Okay, so on to the Redmen then.
Yeah, I mean, from your perspective, it's I think it's fair to say probably over the last 6 weeks you've probably gone through your periods, haven't you, where it's
I'm
been,
open, so
yeah, I think it's fair to suggest that, and I'm saying that as not a Liverpool fan, so I'm allowing you to not jinx yourself. I think you've probably gone through a period which is like, okay, we've dropped some points, and I think what's positive for you is the lead hasn't necessarily been impacted. The other teams are dropping points at the same time, which is encouraging for you. I think we'll touch on, I think it's relevant to touch on City's collapse last night, because everyone's obviously made out that they've turned the corner. But firstly, on yourselves, another, more points picked up and another decent win in the Champions League.
Yeah, so from that, I was actually expecting more rotation, but he did rotate a little bit. But that's not what Slot's about, really. He's a manager that he doesn't want to lose that momentum. And the rhythm. Yeah, so he did make a few changes. One of the changes that he did make was bringing Kwanzaa in, which I was quite happy about by the end of the game.
Yeah.
Because it gave him that performance where he didn't have loads to do. He wasn't under the spotlight loads.
Yeah.
He didn't have loads of pressure, but he came out with a victory, not making any mistakes, hopefully building his confidence so that he can be used more in that rotation. Now, I said to Andy literally last week, he's one of my concerns, and centre-back is one of my concerns because of the fact that if he comes in because someone's injured and it's in a high-profile game and there's a lot more riding on it, I'm not sure he's got the mentality to get through that at the moment.
Yeah, that's fair
Whereas
enough.
this time, well, not this time last year, the back end of last season, I was saying that he should have been starting instead of Konate.
Yeah.
But I think this season's just showing that he does have that mental frailty a little bit. That if it's not worked out, and we can say,
I mean, look, it just comes with experience as well, doesn't it? You got to say that. I think if you have a setback at that age, and I think you look back probably, and I wouldn't know it as well as you do, you probably look all the way back to that mistake at Old Trafford where he's played the ball back. I don't know if he ever recovers from that because you're against one of your main rivals, the big game. There's no doubt that was your mistake and that's it. But you have a setback like that and young, you haven't got that kind of, okay, well that happens a few seasons ago. It happens, we come through it, blah, blah, blah. You have to play in a certain way, I think, after you've... There's the phone, by the way. You'd have to play in a certain way, I think, after you've made a mistake and you go back to basics. Whereas I think as a young player like that, he'll have always been bred, well, no. As an academy player, you just do the same things again. Whereas an experienced pro will go, no, we'll keep it safe now for a few games, get our confidence back and go again. Yeah,
play short, play the low risk.
Yeah, that's it.
Which obviously brings us on to a couple of other things that I thought we might have got from that game, which was Gravenberch. I thought he might have had a little bit of a rest, but he didn't. It's not a massive concern because he was able to come off partway through the game, but it's showing again, like, we need him to be playing.
Does it show again for you, and we'll probably come on to it towards the end of the Liverpool section, that it would be a mistake to not go into the market in January for maybe someone who you can go, listen, he can come in and fill that role comfortably, and it gives him that little breather, because it doesn't scream out there's many players in that squad who can do that role at the moment, that or fulfill that role that Gravenberch does.
No, and I think if he's not playing, it will change the system a little bit as well. So like if you brought in an Endo, for example, then it just means that McAllister's job's a little bit different as well. It probably wouldn't change too much for Szoboszlai. He might have to come a little bit deeper.
He's just your box-to-box Szoboszlai though, and he's just, I mean, the engine is incredible. Yeah,
and again, we can tell when he's not playing, it is a big miss. There's been talk about Elliott maybe coming into that role, but again, has he got the legs with McAllister to both do that? Because both of them are decent on the ball. They're good playing through the lines and all that kind of stuff. But if you're asking them to run around for a large portion of the game and chasing after people, neither of them have got that in the legs. Like
horses for courses as well, though. And I mean, just briefly looking back to the Brentford game of the weekend, you couldn't have had a Harvey Elliott in there alongside McAllister. You know, you'd have struggled because they're so high energy, high tempo. They move the ball quickly from back to front. You are having to get up and down the pitch. Yeah. And just be, you know, we obviously went on to the Lille one there. I thought that was a huge win at the weekends, and
massive.
The man coming up with the goods. I mean, I heard just before you touched, I heard a comparison. I think it was Danny Murphy who actually said, "Can we just forget about Nunez being this? Okay, he's going to be a proper Liverpool number 9, and let's just see him as like a Divock Origi." What's?
I think the only thing why he can't be an Origi is because of the price that he came in at and the expectation of what he should be doing for.
But is that expectation still there now though? Is it kind of?
It's not, but that means that it's more like, that's why you're getting more people angry about it, because we're now not even expecting them to do it week in, week out. Now the game the other day was perfect for him because he didn't have to think about it. Ball fell to him. He just little touch out of his seat, bang. Going a little bit earlier into that play, you've got Elliott playing that ball into Trent to then get it across. So that's the kind of area you want Elliott to be in. So
it's also the area you want Trent in as well.
Well, yeah. But if we've got later on in the game people like Elliott and Nunez to come off the bench when the opposition are a bit more tired, a little bit more switched off, that kind of thing, it does create those gaps, it does create those moments. Whereas I think if you start Nunez from the start, especially against a team who's going to kind of sit back a bit, that's not Nunez's game. So I think you're asking a lot of him.
I get it, but I think in a title-winning campaign and multiple title-winning campaigns, which is what you're going to want over the next few years, I think you need some of that. I think you need that element of like, you know, surprise and unexpected, you know, chaos. Obviously that name, Captain Chaos. But I look at like Man City when they started to get on that kind of, you know, that gather that momentum and their first title. Mario Balotelli was that player. He was like, you couldn't rely on him. But if you see him on the team sheet, you're like, wow, what are we going to do about him? Or he comes off the bench, you're like, we don't know what we're going to get here.
But we literally spoke about him last week, and I even made a reel that was meant to go out on Sunday, and it was all about should you sell him and like what would Liverpool do with that money and all that kind of stuff. Then he does that on the Saturday.
So what was the conclusion?
So we were basically saying like if you can use that money to, you know,
what was the money? What do you think you'd get for him?
Well, the rejected bid was 70, wasn't it, from Saudi?
Was he going to Saudi though? Would he go to Saudi?
Well, that was one of the things that we've mentioned. Like, is he too young and too focused on his career to want to kind of a bit of a throw in the towel thing, isn't it? Going to Saudi, you're getting your money, but career wise, you're kind of going into the abyss, aren't you? But then, if you got that 70 million, would it get invested straight away anyway? And if not, then you may as well keep him. So that he comes up with those kind of performances. And if you win the league and you win the Champions League or whatever, then that's money that you're recuperating anyway.
I honestly, but if you're going for, as I say, you're obviously going for the title this year, and I think that's probably the most sure of the competitions you're in, or certainly the closest to being a reality because of the position you're in. The Champions League are obviously going to throw up, we're going to come on to that, it's going to throw up some tricky draws, some different teams, and again the depth you require to compete, as you've seen in recent years on 4 different fronts. It's going to require so many moments, so many kind of, you know, changing of tact, throwing the kitchen sink at it, that I just think people like him or players like him are so underrated, I think. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve some of the criticism he's had. I've been the first to laugh at him when he's missed like five, you know, absolute sitters in one game. But again, he produces moments like that, and the weight in gold. If he does produces 3 or 4 performances like that between now and the end of the season, well, it's worth 70 million.
There's 2 points straight away. In that first weekend of us talking about should he go and stuff, there's 2 points that he's gained us straight away. And then, as you just said about rotation, we know Jota's out for another good few weeks again. Now, he's great when he's on. He will score more often than not when he's on the pitch, but you need him to be on the pitch. And if he's not, at the moment, it's mainly Diaz that we're playing through the middle. And he's gone through a little bit of a rough patch at the moment in terms of he's not firing on all cylinders. If you can bring Nunez in for maybe this weekend or the cup game next week, then at least either Diaz can go and have a little bit of a break, have a breather, like kind of recalibrate a little bit, or you can try and back out on the left and give Gakpo a little bit of a rest as well. If they all rotate, then that's great. Yeah. So that's why, again, as you were saying there, that's why you need a Nunez. Again, the price, we've got to kind of forget about it, but it's what can he offer for everybody else as well. Yeah. Not just what's he doing when he comes on the pitch, but him being on the pitch allows other people to either go into a different position or have a little bit of a break, and they can then come back firing in the next game, which might even be more important. Just briefly back to Jota, he's arguably more of a liability than Nunez in terms of his injuries. I mean, we've been there obviously on a lesser extent with Calvert-Lewin. If you give me a choice of having a Calvert-Lewin who's missing chances or a Calvert-Lewin who's not on the pitch, there's still no question which one you prefer. Yeah. It's probably getting to the point now where you are going to have to consider whether you can actually rely on him at all. Yeah, and over the next season or so, it will be a case of let's look at the actual matches you've played, or even the minutes, not even the matches, it's the minutes, because even some of the matches that he has been playing, he's been coming on 15, 20, 25 minutes. So he's offering maybe a goal in that time, but then because he's played that 15, 25 minutes, whatever, he's then out for another 4 or 5 weeks, and then he comes back in and does, he's sub again, and then he'll come on for a little bit. I think he's only started, he started the game the other week in the FA Cup. We thought that was to get his fitness back, and then 2 weeks later, he's sidelined again. Yeah, madness. Obviously, another critical one. Every game's critical, but you look at that, the game against Ipswich of the weekend coming off the back of an absolute spanker from City, and there's 2 ways you could look at it. You could go, look, they're going to be absolutely on the floor. They're going to be coming here just trying to avoid another hiding.
or you look at it and go, this could be tricky, this, because they're really going to shut up shop. They're going to get men behind the ball. In fairness to them, before the City game, I think it's only Newcastle really who give them a hiding. They have been competitive in most games. How are you looking at that fixture?
Well, to be fair, I don't like talking about lower down teams and saying like, oh yeah, Liverpool are going to win or whatever, because anytime that soft shite does that, we get beat by Fulham, for example, or whatever. But on paper, yeah, it should be a nailed on. Like, if you're a betting person, there's no value in the bet.
No,
know what I mean? Like, it should be a foregone conclusion that Liverpool should be winning. And as you just said, it could be a case of Ipswich just going, well, let's just try not to get beat. Let's pack everybody in. Let's bring everybody into our own half. We don't really give a shit about going into Liverpool's half. Let's just make sure that we don't have a repeat of last week. Well, that'll be worse for morale going down.
Yeah, I think
forwards.
I think what's really kind of positive for you is
a blip against City, everyone can have. But if you do back to back, and again, Liverpool and City, they're no slouches. Like, but if you go back to back and then you goal difference in just those two games is like -10 or worse, then there's a lot of damage that you need to repair. One off against City, then you kind of either scrape a draw, you might get beat 1-0 by Liverpool. The lads will still be probably happy with that as well.
Yeah, and I think from experience, when you get into this part of the season, I know managers and teams are looking very closely at the goal difference. That was a huge blow to them last week without, and they've probably realised it now, because we're 4 points away from the relegation zone, but because of the goal difference, it's basically 5 points. If we, I'm pushing me luck here, but if we manage to get a draw in that rearranged derby, we've effectively got a 6 point cushion then. So they're looking at the other teams now, thinking the goal difference, because it's 14 points, 16 points, 16 points for those three that are kind of looking to try and get out there, and then we're on 20. So Kieran McKenna and the other manager are going, well, look, these goals now are probably going to be the difference. That's probably going to be the point that either keeps us up or relegates us.
Yeah.
So that'll probably work in your favour to a certain extent.
Yeah, and when the game was on the other day, the City game, I actually put into the group like, this is damaging more than just the loss. It's more that it's damaging what they've got going further forward, because we were talking on the pod last week, and it was that Ipswich are doing all right scoring goals, and their goals for was okay for the team that's down there, but then they go and leak 6. So what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I'm hoping Liverpool can like prize them open, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's still 0-0 at half time, because they're just going to make it so hard and pack everybody in that we've got to do something to be able to break that down.
I want to go back to the Champions League in a minute, because there's obviously it's getting really juicy, but the reason I want to go back to it because obviously some of it focuses on City as well. Just before we do prediction then,
I'd say it's going to be, I reckon it might be like a 3-0, but like quite late goals. I think it's going to be a bit of an edgy one for the first half hour, 45.
You start slow anyway.
Well, yeah, we start slow majority of the time anyway, but I can't see that they're going to be offering us much space at all. Like, I think, as you were saying, they're going to just make sure that they're not embarrassed like they were last week.
Yeah, that's a good.
And I think by the end of the game, the quality and the players that come off the bench will be a little bit too much for them. Yeah,
fair enough. Well, another competition, obviously, briefly going back to the Lille victory last night, put you clear at the top of the new format of the Champions League, which I've said a few times now. I really like it. I do.
It's so much better for the neutral, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's now getting really juicy and tasty, because you're looking at it going, wow, there's a lot of jeopardy there for some of those bigger sides. There's you're starting to look at it going, this draw could be just throw up anything. Yeah, that's just never been the case. You could normally say when you get to the last 16 in the Champions League, well, it's going to be all the favourites are going through, because they're all going to be drawn, away from each other. Now, we might be getting to the last stage and going, this is a disaster. Like, we've ended up with a load of crabs here in the semis, but it's different and it's refreshing. So, from your perspective, and Arne Slot pointed it out in a press conference before the Lille game, saying, well, look, this is so weird for us now, because we could actually have finished top and be in a worse position, because the prospect of facing some of the teams that are going to be in or around 24th place have to get through a playoff.
Yeah, so the way it's working now, Liverpool
top 8, isn't it, that go through?
Yeah, so they're all automatically through. Then everyone down to 24.
16 to 24 play a tie to get through to the last 16.
With Liverpool, we're going to finish either first or second. Probably going to be first because I'm not too sure on the Barca goal difference. No, Barca can still.
Oh, can they? Yeah.
But I think it'd have to be a goal difference shift as well.
Big swing.
But we would then go on to play someone from one of the playoffs of 15th, 16th, 17th and 18th. Now, as it currently stands, we've got 15th is Bayern Munich, 16th is Real Madrid, 17th is Man City.
Oh my God.
Oh, sorry, 17th is Juventus, sorry,
God.
because it was City yesterday. And then we've got 18th is Celtic.
And they're not going to win the tie, are they? So
well,
you're looking at the two best teams from those four.
So we're looking at like some Champions League thoroughbreds are going to be the ones that are seen as the lesser clubs going into a playoff. Now, the way that those games work, chances are they probably will win. Pretty sure that Bayern are playing against someone who they're already out. I think Real Madrid are possibly playing Brest, who they're
away.
So Brest are on 13 points, and I think there's about 5 or 6 teams are on 13 points. They're all trying to get into that automatic spot. Yeah. So they're not going to be resting players and resting on the laurels.
Provided that they can't be outside of the 24, there's no risk there, because the argument could be, well, look, let's not lose this, because we still actually could get eliminated altogether.
Yeah.
I don't know what are they? What are they on there? I'm just trying to look at it, because I think that's a really interesting
Brest
one.
are on 13 points, and then
what's 24th place?
Well, 24th place is 10, and then Man City are 25th with 8 points. So Man City have still got a bit to do, like
quite a bit to. Isn't it the last round of fixtures?
Last round is Wednesday, and every game is 8 o'clock on Wednesday, just like last game of the season, because you need to make sure that no one's kind of
having the opportunity to go, well, let's just play for the draw here because we both stay in.
Or you know that you're already through and you have to then rest players and all that kind of stuff and get the advantage that way. So all of those games are next Wednesday, 8 o'clock.
This is brilliant. Like
we're actually behind Barcelona on goal difference, so they can go top, but it doesn't make any difference.
Who have you got?
We have got. Let's have a little look here. We are. Yeah, away to PSV.
It's not a gimme, is it?
But I'm thinking whether you finish first or second, it doesn't matter.
I
can see a lot of players being rested for that.
Yeah.
Because we've got big games coming up in the league. We've got loads of fixtures coming up because of the fact that we've got the derby game thrown in a couple of weeks.
That's a really interesting one for Arne Slot, because as you say, he just doesn't seem to be his style. But he's got to at some point, hasn't he? It should be. And
if there's a game to go, lads,
he could come in for some serious criticism, couldn't he? Because if you play a top side or a good side against them, maybe only rest a few, and then you end up either picking up injuries or you clearly start to tire, they're going to be the games that people look back and go, come on, you're a bit daft there. But yeah, that'll be an interesting.
Like, you can use that game and you can use Plymouth. They're games where you should be able to give a good, I would say, over those two games, your full starting 11 should be missing one of them.
Yeah,
and then you play the other half for the other one, and then just get that freshness back through. Because what you don't want is that they go into those games, they win them, but you're putting the lads under a bit more strenuous pressure rather than obviously mental pressure or whatever, just because you want to keep that momentum going. Like, form-wise, we're okay, so we don't need to.
Yeah. And I think that the last one on that as well, regardless of whether he believes or the sports scientist is telling him, look, they'll get to the end of the season, no problem. We've seen with City, it's the hangovers the following season then.
And we've seen it with Liverpool, right? We've seen it with Fabinho, for example. Yeah. He was quality for those few seasons, but then there was that one season where it was like his legs just giving in.
Andy Robertson as well.
It's happening again, because you can't afford to not be playing Andy Robertson, because there wasn't a good enough like deputy to allow it. But Slot seems to think that Tsimikas is a good enough deputy for this little bit of rotation, and it has kind of allowed Robertson to dip in and out of the team, and again not have loads of pressure on him to be playing every single game, but also if his performances aren't great, just take a little one there, little have a 30 minutes the next game or whatever, kind of reset, get yourself back in, get yourself physically fit, and then obviously hopefully mentally fit then as well.
100%.
Are we sticking on Champions League to talk about City?
Yeah, well, again, it's Champions League, but it's obviously also got connotations and no significance to the Premier League as well. 2-0 up again. Well, they were 3-0 up against Feyenoord, weren't they? At home. 2-0 up this time against PSG, and obviously no slouches. 4-2. You can see 4 goals in the last half an hour.
Yeah, if you're 2-0 up away from home with 35 minutes to go
against anyone.
Yeah. You can't be affording, and a team at City's level as well, you'd think that they'd know the players on the pitch, whether the manager gives them certain instructions or not. Players on the pitch know, right, it's our game now. We've just got to make sure that we manage this game now.
And if there's any teams, to be fair, back certainly over the last few seasons, who when they're in front, you think, we don't even need to get the ball off them. You think it's City, like they'll just control possession.
Yeah, take this thing right out.
But they certainly seem to have lost that ability to manage games, and that's both when they're in front and certainly pegging teams back when they're behind as well.
Yeah, so one of the things that I saw a little thing on Twitter, and it was basically Jason Cundy saying Liverpool are boring.
I actually listened to that feature. It was mad.
And then like people are phoning in saying like, well, they just had 37 shots in a game and all that kind of stuff. One thing that I did think was boring over the last couple of seasons was when City were getting beat 1 and maybe even 2-0.
It's over.
You couldn't even put a bet on that had any value, because even when City were getting beat 1 or 2-0, you go, well, they're going to come back anyway. It's City. Yeah. Whereas that's totally gone now. They the air
of invincibility.
Yeah, and that's not just for them to go, it's not like it used to be, but that's for the opposition to be like, these aren't what they used to be. Yeah. And if we get at them, they've got frailties now. And certain teams were playing them a couple of seasons ago, even up until last season, going, they're ahead. There's no point now. Just make sure it's not embarrassing. Or we're ahead and it'd be dead nervy. You're not gonna keep that lead, because City have got too much quality to be able to break you down, to turn you over and to get a victory themselves. But they just haven't got that now. So they're currently in 25th in that. They're just below that playoff place, and they've got Club Brugge next week, and they still need to win themselves. Yeah, I mean, they've got to win pretty handsomely, because the team's obviously in them 24, 23. I think it's up to 21st that they can potentially finish. At all playing winnable games as well. So it might even be out of their hands. Well, yeah. So yeah, they can win, and they can get up to 11 points or whatever. But it's whether those other teams who are on 10, 11, 12 points now just get that result of a draw or a win to... Which is unthinkable, isn't it? Imagine saying like City going out the group stages of the Champions League. That's effectively what it is now. Yeah, it's mad. But that's why this new format, as complicated as it is, it does make people want to carry on watching. Whereas this time last year, certain teams who'd won 4 games, it was like, well, match day 5 and 6 was just like it was over, wasn't it? Yeah. No one was interested. You give them a couple more games and then that extends it a little bit, but then equally, as you say, it continues the drama, because you've got drama going off the bottom, mainly at the bottom, but then the whole jeopardy of dropping out of 8th and having an extra couple of games or ties to get through. So yeah, I think it's I mean, look, again, we might be looking at it end of the season or in 2 seasons going, look, it's getting a bit, particularly commercially, the sponsors going, that's the only thing is, if it is, as you were saying, like a couple of the crap teams that end up going a little bit further, then it'll be the people who've got the money going, well, we don't want this. This isn't an advert for what we want here. We don't want Mbappe going change out. Change it back. Yeah, exactly. We don't want Mbappe, Haaland, De Bruyne being out in the first round. That's where that's the value for us. So yeah, it remains to be seen. But again, fair play. Look, there was a lot of criticism for it. I think it's actually been a decent move from UEFA so far, and it's definitely for the neutral, as you said, creates a lot more drama and jeopardy. Moving away from footy then. Misfits as well. We're going to call it Misfits. We're not going to call it boxing. You've obviously got a few points to this end, but Darren Till, whatever you think of him, obviously is a skilled combat. He's a skilled fighter. Mixed martial arts is obviously his bag. He's been banging on the door trying to get a fight, mainly in the misfit category, and being the personality he is and being from the UFC, he's obviously made enough noise. He finally gets his fight against Taylor, and it pretty much went the way you would expect, in my opinion. Yeah, defo. The fact that he got the fight in the end because of the Tommy Fury pulling out and all that kind of stuff. Like, even though we're not massive fans of Misfits in a sense, you still don't want someone to have put all the training in, doing a proper camp, and then someone just pulling out for a black reason.
Yeah, you've still got to appreciate, you're right, you still got to appreciate the work that goes in to prepare for it, and the time and investments and all that goes in.
And not just him, the lads that he's working with in the gym and all that kind of stuff. So the fact that he got his fight is great. But yeah, he showed like the level. And influencer v influencer, it's just like throwing hands, isn't it? And cuddling each other, and they're all trying to get that knockout punch
big knockout,
and throwing wild ones. But then you see when someone who's got a bit about them, like combat-wise, as you were saying, and they know how to fight, the levels show. And you're putting someone down a few times in the match. Fight's over by round 6, and then all I was thinking was, where does he go now? Does he try and go through the Misfits again and work his way up that way and get bigger fights of bigger influencers? Or has he shown to people that he can have a bit of a go?
We've said it before, haven't we? With multiple different sports, it really depends what he wants, doesn't it? What he really wants. Because I raised the question, a month or so ago to Andy when the whole Tommy Fury thing, went or whatever. I said, look, if he really wants to fight, he can fight. There'll be plenty of people out there, obviously in the likes of fight him in the Olympia or whatever. There'll be people who want to fight him. Don't get me wrong, I don't think the high profile boxers who are trying to make their way through the levels and trying to win British titles, they don't want to get him with a dad and till, because it's a fucking genuine threat. But I think if he's just after trying to chalk up some wins and start to earn respect for himself and get promoters on his side to go, well, actually, I'll get you a fight. He could do it the proper way, but that's not, as you know from your family, it's not glamorous. It's not, you're not getting tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of pounds to go and fight on a bill in a leisure centre or a washed up venue.
Yeah,
so,
and that's the thing as well. The venue itself, like that was in the Co-op Arena, like. You got loads of eyes, whether it's the right eyes or not. Yeah. He's fighting in front of thousands of people, getting a lot of dough, but then in the build-up going, oh, what the fuck am I doing here? He's actively saying, I don't know why I'm here. Yeah. And again, that's probably part of his game plan of the act of, well, I don't want to be here, but I'll take your money.
And that's it. And so I think going back to the question, I say it begs the question. We've almost answered the question. I think it seems to me that at the moment, he's in it for the money. He enjoys the drama. He knows from his perspective, he's coming from a sport where you're going in thinking it's good chance I'm coming out there with brain damage, or there's every chance that I'm never going to be the same after I get out that cage. He's now going in against people who he knows really genuine, unless he switches off, it's not going to harm him. He's getting paid handsomely for it. He's remaining relevant in his eyes. Social media, he's always going to get attention. He's going to grow his profile. And if he wanted to, in 2 years, he could probably just pivot back and go, right, I now will do boxing. Now that I've earned 10 million off them mugs, I'll now actually do it myself, because I've now got plenty of security behind me, and I can give it a proper go as well. So, who are we to say which path he should take or whether it's right or wrong? But I think to answer your question, I would suggest, based on the way he's going about it now, that he's going to milk the money for a few years. Then he's going to go, okay, what now?
Yeah, and that's fine as long as at the end of it, again, it's not like a sour one where he then goes back to telling everyone that they're all shit and all that, because it's like you can't.
No, I don't. Well, you can.
It's one without the other.
You can, but anyone who has got respect for the skill side of it and the top of the game, which is boxing, real boxing, just going to roll their eyes and go ahead, Darren, whatever. It is what it is. But again, going back to it, look, if it's going to, as you said, it adds another layer to that misfit, category, doesn't it? Because if you do start to get more, as we've seen probably in the last year, more people who are crossing over from one art of fighting into another, the level goes up. Because you're not talking about, as you say, like white collar fighters here who's celebs who've had 6 months in the gym. You're talking about people who've been training as fighters for the best part of 15, 20 years.
Yeah, definitely.
So it might just bring them a little bit closer and maybe create a bit of a hybrid. But again, I think as Andy will be shouting down the the screen, whatever screen he's watching. It's not boxing. This is blah blah blah. It's different, and I think we just need to keep that in mind. It's showbiz. Do you know what I mean? It's showbiz. It's as you say, it's influence. It's people trying to make money. It's a different customer, as you say, a different set of eyes watching it. It's entertainment. You know, it the equivalent when we growing up, in particular, it was WWF, it's WWE. It's the same thing. It's the same
and
thing.
we were all invested in it, weren't we? So we can't begrudge kids to not be invested in that.
That's
either.
it. Each to their own. Enjoy it. For the fighters, fair play. He's going to earn some money. As long as you aren't taking too much risk, and I'm probably be saying that to the people who can get in with that until have a good think of your KSI or whoever thinking, go ahead, I'll go and fight Sil. You're not fighting some Ming who's had 6 months in the gym or who does YouTube videos. This is someone who can seriously hurt you, and I think that was the only thing I'd say about that fight the weekend that could have went south.
Well, we didn't have KSI calling out that until though, did we? We had KSI calling out Wayne Bridge.
Yeah. And
so that shows the calibre of fighter that KSI fancies fighting against.
Yeah.
And thankfully, obviously we thought when it first came out that it was all part of the drama, might have been pre-agreed, all that kind of stuff. But within that first bit of promotion, the Wayne Bridge kind of John Terry thing comes out, and KSI saying about, John Terry sleeping with his missus and all that kind of stuff. And fair play to Wayne Bridge, he's gone, there's the line. And he's probably said, I fucking told you not to even bring that up.
Yeah.
So you've got the goal to do it.
Yeah.
Because you probably think that I need you, and I'm gonna bow down and go, well, yeah, I'll play along with it. But he's like, well, no, because I've got a family.
It's more important.
I've got me self-respect. I don't need you to take the piss out of me for me to make some money. So there and then, well, within 24 hours, that fight was already pulled.
Yeah.
And fair play to Wayne Bridge for it.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you on that. I thought, like you, even more so, I thought, I'm not even paying any attention. This is not going to happen. It's just mad. And I would have been gutted, to be honest, because this has just gone too far. But as you say, I think for him to stand his ground and to go, look, and you know what, I think it's a moral lesson, isn't it? It's almost like, that word banter just gets thrown around so much now, and men's mental health, thankfully, gets a lot more exposure for the right reasons now in terms of, look, it's a thing. You can't just, it's not about being a man and dropping your head. Wayne Bridge, that period of his life and the impact it must have had on his family, and still to this day has on his family, it was probably horrific for him. But for him to stand his ground and go, do you know what, you can have banter. I'm all for making this a spectacle. I'm all for, us all getting a bit more attention, a bit of money. But listen, that's not banter. That's horrible, personal, and borderline bullying. So, I hope that's a message to the younger audience to go, look, you can mess around with your mates, you can do things, and you can do things that can all get you a little bit from it if you pre-agree where the line is.
But there's consequences.
Yeah, there's consequences. You can't just throw around, stuff like that and say what you want. But yeah, I'm with you. It's refreshing to see someone just gone that asked about the money. There's more important things in life than that. And I'm not allowing you to speak about my family or me like that. So, fair play.
Well done, Wayne Bridge.
Yes, absolutely. Just to
finally,
finally on the tennis, just the last little bit really. So it's been the Australian Open. It's hard for UK viewers to watch the Australian Open. I do like watching the majors. I am a fair weather tennis fan, but when the big tournaments come around, I do tend to watch them. But the Australian Open, because of the time difference, the best chance you've got, there's only one game on that's on about 8:30 or maybe 6 o'clock. So it depends on how early you're up, you can watch one. But obviously, you had Andy's mate, who started the tournament quite well, but she went out fairly quickly. You know what? It's like Voldemort. I don't even want to say her name because it's just. But the real headlines, which is again about the top players, it's one of the first times, and again I do follow most of the major tournaments that I've seen. I think for about 2 years that I've seen the top 2 seeds in the semis that look like they're almost certain to get to the final. So this morning you've had Sabalenka, who's gone through in the women's. She's the number 1 seed, and you've got. I googled this before we started how to actually pronounce it. I'm sure it's Swiatek, I think it is. She's the number 2 seed, and it's too I don't mean to generalize or to stigmatize women's tennis, but these are 2 masculine tennis players. you know, don't get me wrong, nice looking girls and stuff. I'm not making it about that.
But these
are
power.
proper packing some power, yeah. And it'll be a really good match. But Swiatek's got Madison Keys later on this morning at the time of recording. And you would expect her to come through that fairly comfortably. So it'll probably be 1 and 2 in the women's. Go across to the men's draw, and you've got Yannick Sinner is facing Ben Shelton. Yeah, I would expect Sinner to come through that fairly comfortably. The other semi isn't quite as straightforward for obvious reasons. You got the number 2 seed Zverev, who again on form, and the fact he's the number 2 seed, you would expect to come through, but he's facing Novak Djokovic, who absolutely
he's still Novak Djokovic.
He's still Novak Djokovic, and he's shown by his victory against Alcaraz in the last round that, you know, he can still beat anyone. And, you know, he went 1 set down against Alcaraz, looked like he was struggling with an injury. I actually remember him doing this to Andy Murray a few years ago, where he like started limping around and stuff. Sometimes I think it's a little bit of an extension of his mind games. Sense of security. Yeah, because with Alcaraz, what you find with Alcaraz, because he's still very young, he does blow hot and cold in matches, and he's got the tendency to switch off every now and again and get complacent. So I think Djokovic has almost thought, if I can get him to just become even more complacent, I can really seize on the opportunity, and he did. Came from a set down to beat him 3-1. Now set up a match with Zverev, which, you know, it was because he's number 7 seed. Djokovic is mad to see him as number 7 seed. He could have easily been on the side of Sinner. I think if he faces Sinner in the semi-final, I think Sinner beats him. But I think facing him in a final, Novak Djokovic in a final, it's just something about it. Like Real Madrid in the Champions League final, you just think they're going to win it. There's just an air of inevitability about it. So I hope, although I'm a Zverev fan, to be fair, I do normally back him if I'm betting in a tournament. I haven't done in this one, and I do normally enjoy watching him. I'd love to see Djokovic beat him and set up that final. But back to my previous point, if Zverev does win, it's the first time for me in living memory that I've seen it seed 1 and 2 in the men's and seed 1 and 2 in the women's facing the final. Either way, 2 very, very good finals. And I think they should be on. I think the final's on Sunday. Let me just check. It's not showing it yet, I don't think. Yeah, I think the final's on Sunday at around 8:30, 9 o'clock. So it is actually at a decent
time
hour
for us as well.
So yeah, that'll be entertaining. Definitely look out for that. I think the women's will be earlier. I think maybe on the Sunday morning, followed by the men's. But definitely worth watching. And yeah, it's been a good tournament.
Decent. Anything else?
No, I don't think so. No darts. Well, there was the Bahrain, I think, was last week. Probably maybe before you was recording it, maybe slightly after. Bunty won that, faced Gerwyn Price in the final. But Gerwyn Price knocked Littler out. I think Littler actually last year won the Bahrain Masters, and that was just kind of set him up for the season. Bunty's won this one, and Bunty's become, certainly in Merseyside and across the Northwest, become a bit of a cult hero, hasn't he? Obviously, the comparisons with Ronaldo in terms of similar age is dead funny. If you haven't seen that, if you just search Steve Bunting on any social media channel. I think
his entrance tune as well, like everyone's behind
Titanium.
it and all that. Like it is kind of for the fair weather, as we were saying before about the tennis, defo with the dart. It's if you're bringing those little bit of extra, people are going to be more engaged with you. Like,
yeah, and I think it's one of them as well. Without being like mean about it, he's a fat guy with glasses. Do you know what I mean? He looks like someone in school who got bullied. Do you know what I mean? But he's such a big personality, and he embraces that. He's like, listen, I am what I am. He's big red, by the way. He's got a season ticket at Liverpool, so he sits in it I think not a box, but he's in a corporate area in Liverpool, because fella I know who's parents of my daughter's mate has been in the thing with him a few times. But yeah, it seems a tough fella, and he's won the Bahrain Masters. So one to look out for this season, if you're following darts, is how Bunty can maybe kick on and win a few majors and hopefully get closer to a world title next season.
Decent. So just before we leave, little reminder for anyone who's in and around the Feathers. Tonight we've got Paul McKenna, and then tomorrow we've got Stephanie Hodge. And again, nice one for the Feathers for letting us record again today. Hope everyone has a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.